Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star sports podcast. I'm Blair Kirchhoff. The Chiefs have had a more impressive path to the Super Bowl than the San Francisco 49ers, with Kansas City winning twice on the road. Their most recent common opponent is the Baltimore Ravens. The Chiefs beat them in the AFC Championship game last week. The 49ers lost to them at home late in the regular season. So why are the Chiefs underdogs in Super Bowl LVIII? Beat writer Jesse Newell and columnists Vahe, Gregorian, and Sam McDowell explain on today's show. We also discuss some of the Chiefs' heroes of the postseason, some you'd expect, and some surprises. Okay, let's get started. Super Bowl LVIII is almost upon us, and I wanted to start by asking a simple question. Why are the San Francisco 49ers a 2-point favorite over the Kansas City Chiefs in this game, considering the paths that these teams have taken in the postseason, and with San Francisco trailing in both games by double digits and the Chiefs looking so impressive in the victories over Miami, Buffalo, and Baltimore? I'm a little bit miffed at why the Chiefs are an underdog in this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just because it's the large sample size. I mean, it's the full season of the 49ers. They were better than the Chiefs over the regular season, and the markets tend to look at as much information as possible. When you look at as much as information as possible, the 49ers have been the better team for most of the year. It's not been the case over the past, three weeks. And generally, I agree with the market's reasoning on things. I mean, they know better than we do. I do think the Chiefs are a little bit of an exception because of the stuff that we've talked about on this podcast for the last month, which is the adjustments the Chiefs have made on offense are real. They're not one-game tendency things because they required an internal look at themselves, and that's why their production has been different offensively. I don't think it's because they had a good day or they played a bad team. Three of their best offensive outings of the season have been three of their last four. With Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he didn't play in Week 18. So I would imagine that the odds makers had a little bit of a tough time with this line for that reason. The Chiefs going on the road, looking pretty good when they did it against two really good teams. I think the Ravens are probably the only team I thought was better than the 49ers going into these playoffs. I don't think any of us ever really thought that game was in doubt. So can totally understand the question, but I think it's just odds makers looking at the full picture.
I have kind of an odds makers question that both you guys, Jesse and Sam, can speak to far better than I understand. At what point would odds, the data they take in, have anything to do with the fact that a guy is 14-3 in the playoffs, like Patrick Mahomes is, and less just Patrick than the kind of emotional equilibrium you might expect out of the Chiefs coming into this game? Does that matter? Is that ever reasoned?
I think that's already baked into.
That's what I was going to say. I think it has been.
The Ravens. Yeah. You looked at professional gamblers said that line should have been 6 points last week. That's why it got pushed from 3.5 up to 5, because they were looking at the teams and said this line should be closer to 6. And I'm sure those same odds makers are looking at the same full body of work and thinking this should be more about 3 or maybe even 3.5. And, I think a guy like Patrick Mahomes is why it's sitting at 1.5 right now. It's
an interesting thing, too. One last thought is just this, like that the most, from as least as I look at it, we've talked about this in other times, what seems like the most pertinent bodies of work right now are about the last month and about the last 5 years, as opposed to just the full length of the season. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's what strikes me the most. Those are the two things that are the biggest indicators about where the Chiefs are.
I just think you got to look at this I think Sam said it well.
Did you get a haircut?
This is great radio for the people out there listening. This is great radio, Sam. I appreciate you interrupting me so that everybody can think about my haircut that they're not going to be able to see.
Looks good, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm getting one today.
Again, great radio for everyone out there.
And I need one, and I'm not getting one. Okay, all right.
I don't even know what I was going to say anymore. So I talked to Aaron Schatz, who runs DVOA, has done this forever. And, I have a story up today about how this is going to be the toughest path of all time if the Chiefs make it through because of the opponents they've played. But to your point, and to all your points.
And that goes beyond seeding.
It goes
beyond just the fact that they would play 2 and 1 and 1.
Yeah. And then this is like his numbers had the Ravens historically good or historically high going to this point of the season. It's so funny because in his rankings, his DVOA, which looks at every play and ranks you based off of that, schedule adjusted, the Chiefs are fifth, and they're going to face 4 of the top 6 DVOA teams. So it's like the toughest possible path you could have other than playing the Cowboys, and you can't play the Cowboys if you're the Chiefs because you're in the AFC. But my main point is this. He did an article for ESPN this week about the best Super Bowl teams of all time. So you look historically, according to his numbers, who were the most dominant for the regular season and the postseason, okay? And I think this is what we're talking about here, which is if the 49ers win this game, they're going to rank somewhere around 13th on that list of all time. Like, this was a really good team in the regular season. They were dominant. They had a good offense. Their offense ranks number 1 on DVOA. Their defense is good. If the Chiefs win, they're going to rank about 50th on this list. Okay? So that's sort of what we're talking about here is that, listen, what the Chiefs have turned on here, 3 of Patrick Mahomes' 5 best performances of the season have been these last 3 games. And I do also want to mention out there, like, we could have had this conversation a few years back when the Chiefs played the Bucs in the Super Bowl. Why are the Chiefs only favored by 3? What's going on here? And then obviously we know how that game turned out. So reality is reality, and what happened is what happened. And the Chiefs getting out to a big lead against the Ravens obviously benefited them because the Ravens had to get out of their game and they had to pass the ball. But I think part of this goes back to just uncertainty about what will happen, and potentially us not giving ourselves too much credit for knowing exactly what's going to happen. There were some things that were outside the Chiefs' control that went their way in that game, and they took advantage of it, but it doesn't necessarily mean the next game is going to swing toward them. And again, those are the margins where I think the Chiefs only being 2-point underdogs, where you'd say they'd be the 50th best Super Bowl champion compared to the 13th. That means Patrick Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo and all these things we think about their postseason success is doing a lot of work to get that line down to 2.
What did you say San Francisco was this year, DVOA?
Number 1 in offense. They're number 2 overall.
Number 2 overall. I would think that a team that finished with a 12-5 regular season record, which was 1 game better than the Chiefs, that on the day that the Chiefs had their worst game of the season, that Christmas Day outing against the Raiders at home, the 49ers were awful, equally awful at home against the Baltimore Ravens, a team that the Chiefs just beat in Baltimore. Those are the things I think about when trying to come up with some balance for this game. So I guess I think the Chiefs are a pretty good bet. Is what I guess what I'm trying to say.
And I wonder if other people are going to think that too as this week goes on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember last week, thinking about these professionals that were watching the line move from 4.5 to 6, and I said this on the unrecorded podcast. Imagine like going to the window and feeling like the sucker because you're betting on Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Vahe mentioned his record, like he's ridiculous as an underdog, and we are recording this right after talking to Andy and Patrick, and I asked them both about being the underdog because I think what we've seen is this team has embraced a role that we were all interested to see what they'd be like in this role because they'd never been in this role before. And Nick Bolton said something really interesting to me in the locker room after the game. He said, we haven't been the underdog as a team, but this team is filled with a bunch of individuals who have. So Patrick Mahomes was not heavily recruited out of college in football. Texas wanted to play safety. Travis Kelce ends up going to Cincinnati. At that point, not a Power 5 school. Nick Bolton's only got, really one SEC team that thought he could play SEC football. And he's at Texas. He's at a school where gets all kinds of college coaches out there. So like a lot of this team's star players is, I hadn't thought about it until he put that in front of me, that this team is filled with guys that have individually played in that role before, or even if collectively as a team, this organization has not.
One quick addition to that is something that we have talked about a little bit, Sam, is it's different, but I think sort of fuses together with it. A lot of these guys have been through stuff in their lives too. I mean, they think of themselves as individuals of adversity. A number of them do. So the combination of being, individually maybe underrated and having had individual struggles, we know a lot of them, right? A lot of that rookie class last year had dealt with personal loss. I think all that goes together in some way.
I think about players, athletes I've known that I thought had a bit of a sense of entitlement, and that was part of their personality. But when you think about the Chiefs, who never get to draft, in the top, top five, or they're always drafting toward the end, and if sometimes traded out of the first round, they don't have 1-1s on their team, do they? They don't have players who have been told how great they were coming into the NFL as the overall top draft pick.
It'd be interesting to think about. Obviously, Mahomes is a top 10 pick barely, but I off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone else on this team. We know it was a thing for Brett Veach for a while to trade for former first round picks that hadn't panned out with on their rookie deals, but. I don't know if they had anyone.
You're making me think of this.
They traded up for McDuffie at what,
22
21?
20,
right?
So I don't know. They might just have one top 20 pick on the entire team. And I'm guessing most NFL rosters have more than one guy who's on their team.
Somebody above a top 10 to begin with, right? And that's not what they have. And then a couple guys in the teams, but they don't have that I can think of. We're probably forgetting somebody, but I can't think of anybody at all that would be above Patrick in the pecking order.
I know we talked about
Blaine Gabbert was a 10th pick.
That's right.
Of all things.
Yeah, you got to think about some free agents and guys like that.
Well, that's where you have to go, because we know we're the drafted player. Legit Sneed's a 4th round guy.
Yeah.
But I remember talking about this when Tyreek Hill was on the team, 5th round player. We know why he fell there, and Kelsey in the 4th, I believe a 3rd or 4th round player. And even the Chiefs were brilliant to trade up for Mahomes, but he went into that draft as maybe a late 1st round pick. And the Chiefs saw along with a couple other teams, but especially the Chiefs saw what they did. But Chris Jones, 2nd round pick, and really felt that he was undervalued in the draft. So I don't know how long that carries with a player. Maybe it always does, right?
I think it depends on the player, but I definitely think with some players it does. I mean, I learned a lot about some of this just talking to these guys last week for a completely different story, just about where they were when this Chiefs AFC championship streak started. And I asked Rashee Rice, and I said, "Were you thinking about the NFL 6 years ago?" He was in high school at the time, and he said, "I wasn't even thinking about the NFL till my junior year of college. It was the first time he thought I could play in the NFL." It goes to SMU. Obviously, he's not a highly recruited player either. So it is part of what you said, Blair. I mean, the fact that you draft at the back end of the rounds, like your team is going to be comprised of guys who are not these really, really highly touted players coming out. And it's odd that they fit into a culture that is really, really used to winning games all the time. And it's an interesting mix, especially for a team that's just now as a team embracing that role for the first time.
It really is. And all the things we're saying, I'm really struck by how they're there's a certain nucleus to all of it that comes together, right? Lack of entitlement, hunger, overlooked, dealt with hard times. I mean, I think there's ways you can see that sort of replenishes the culture that they have.
And of course, the Chiefs are playing against a team whose quarterback is the ultimate disrespected player. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant.
Patrick felt disrespected at being drafted 10th overall. The countdown for the Bears, and here's Brock Purdy. He couldn't even count that high. That's a great point, though.
Anyway, I find it interesting, and when you just think about the culture here and the mojo that we talk about, where some of it might originate, and maybe some of it is there, just coming into the league with something to prove, maybe a little bit of chip on their shoulders.
Well, especially when the guy that is the face of this team can find ways to keep regenerating that thought within himself, right? Like somehow or another, he creates, I don't know if it's outrage he creates or whatever it is, but he definitely has the ability to harness the slightest thing into some form of, I've got to prove myself again. Here I am, I got to prove myself again. We've joked about it among ourselves, but that whole bit in Buffalo where, he's the post-game celebration where he's like, they wanted this, and calling out Buffalo for daring to hope to have a home game against the Chiefs and the audacity of the Bills. So it does speak a little bit to how he can, manufacture is too strong, but how he can process things to continue fueling himself.
I thought it was interesting today, as you mentioned, we heard from Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, also Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill today. how difficult it was for Mahomes to watch the 2021 AFC Championship game, the only one he hasn't participated in, or the Super Bowl. I'm sorry, the Super Bowl, because they lost the championship game. The only Super Bowl he will not have participated in the last 5 years, and it just bothered him. They were an overtime loss from being in 5 straight Super Bowls, and it was all he could do to watch. He couldn't watch it with anybody else. It was he and Brittany watch it together, and he said he had to walk away from it a few times. He was so ticked off about it.
Yeah, I think that's been a defining quality for him. Oddly, I spoke to one of his friends earlier today that had mentioned that they had a Super Bowl party and wanted Patrick to come, and kind of thought he would. And he just couldn't. We heard today, from his perspective, he couldn't stand to stomach the thought of like having a party while watching that game. I mean, I think absolutely one of his defining qualities in life is just how he responds to losing. And that's really one of the few examples, I think, where he's just been trying to get away from it altogether. Although he even said today he enjoys the game too much to where he had to watch it still. He still couldn't get himself just to completely turn off the TV altogether.
The way he spoke about it was almost like someone in mourning. I mean, he phrased it, that was tough. And we're talking about like the 1 year in the last 5 he didn't get to a Super Bowl. And it was like this guy's still suffering through that.
The indignity.
But again, I think it speaks to him as, for lack of a better term, the ultimate competitor. I mean, that's just how he is. It's interesting that, he suffered through college without, winning a lot of games. I don't know how he made it.
Yeah, had to go play in the Pro Bowl that year. Oh, the humanity.
That's right.
We're gonna have plenty to say about the matchup with the 49ers next week. I want to take a look back though at the Ravens game and just look at 2 or 3 moments from that game that defined it and helps explain what's going on with the Chiefs right now. And we'll take them in chronological order. The touchdown pass to Travis Kelce. Let's start with that. How brilliant that play was, and maybe we take it for granted a little bit, having watched this team and Mahomes throughout his career. But looking at that play over and over again, who else makes that play? Who else completes that, throws the pass where Mahomes threw it, and to catch it, as Kelce did in such a difficult position. It wasn't his first reception of the game because he had the great catch on the 4th and 2 to get him down there. But one of his 9 receptions in the first half, he was already over 100 yards. I thought it was the best half that Travis Kelce's played as a Chief. It happened to be on the road in the AFC title game. And finishing with 11 receptions for 11 targets, the most catches in which he caught every one of them in his career. So what's anything strike you about the touchdown pass that we haven't covered?
Go ahead.
Go Sam.
Well, it's not a pass he usually makes. He doesn't usually like to throw in traffic, and he's willing to throw in traffic. But to me, I mean, it's more to the other guy you mentioned in there, which is Travis Kelce. I mean, Kelce's looked like a different player since he set out the finale. I looked up for a column I wrote today the stats in his last 3 games that he had before he set out. 3 games combined, 13 catches, 88 yards, no touchdowns. Since sitting out the game in LA and having a week off, he's had 23 catches, 262 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Same time frame. And, it's obviously what's notable about why we're all sitting up here at Arrowhead this week is the Chiefs have a week off.
I mean, to look at that play, go back and watch the first play of the Super Bowl, or the first touchdown of the Super Bowl last year.
Against the Eagles.
It's the same play.
The ball's thrown differently.
The guy defends it differently.
So we talked to Patrick Mahomes in training camp about this, and I asked him, what was your favorite throw of the Super Bowl? And he says that one. He says the play he loves, they have confidence in. I think you're starting to get a pattern of this with the Chiefs, which is their coaches trust their players, say, what do you feel confident in? And then they call those plays because there's so much of this that's just mental. Like, if Patrick Mahomes believes this play is going to work, it's going to work. To your point, Sam, you're exactly right. Kelce gives a little bit more sauce in the Eagles game, able to open himself up more because he takes 2 steps to break outside and then does the up on the route, and the corner breaks to the outside, and then he's beat up top. So Patrick Mahomes turns and kind of lobs it to the end zone, gets Kelsey open. This one, I mean, it's such high-level quarterback play. If you go back and watch the film, Mahomes' eyes have to be in the middle of the field because he has to hold that middle safety in the middle so that he cannot bug Travis Kelsey on this throw. So he's looking middle, snaps his head to look at Kelsey. He's going to Kelsey the whole time. But in that moment, he sees, as Sam's talking about, that cornerback is in phase with Travis Kelsey. There's no separation there. So Patrick Mahomes throws it the only place that he can throw it so that Travis Kelsey can catch it on the back shoulder, and does all that in like 3/10 of a second, or not 3/10, 3/4 of a second. Okay, like boom, boom, does all that, makes the perfect throw. I saw Zebra Technologies had that completion percentage, expected completion percentage was like 26% on that play.
Lowest of the weekend.
The lowest of the weekend was that particular catch, and it goes back to your point about the spread, Blair. I mean, if Patrick Mahomes is going to make plays like that, the Chiefs should be the favorites. You know what I mean? Like, this is an unguardable play with Kyle Hamilton on his hip, who had given up no touchdowns all year.
Who's an all-pro.
Who's an all-pro, and good offense beats good defense. It does not matter. It does not matter if you guard him like that, if Patrick Mahomes makes that throw and Travis Kelsey makes that catch. And that's the type of plays we're now seeing from the Kansas City Chiefs.
I think you mentioned, Blair, earlier that Kelsey had caught all 11 of his targets. Next Gen Stats had a stat on that as well, where his chances of catching
0.6%
all 11 targets were 1 in 156, based on the difficulty of those 11 plays. And I mean, he made 3 of the best catches we've seen him have.
Yes,
And
yes.
I definitely think whichever one you rank third, I still think his diving catch is the best play.
Because as we learned this weekend, and what we all knew, we don't see that. Really don't see him laying out for a ball like that.
So you had that one. The 4th down play, I think, is really underrated.
His head.
It's over his head, and he's on the run. It's pretty clear that that's not Mahomes' first read on that play, so he's got to look back to him. And then the one that we're analyzing now, I mean, whichever one you rank third out of that, I think is the best, like, third catch he's had in a game, perhaps of his entire career. Yeah. And the fact he's doing it at a year where all of us have been saying he's lost a step this year. There's no doubt over the back half of the season he had lost a step, and we've just seen a different version of him. That's why I keep going back to the fact he's set out in Week 18.
What do you think the meaning overall in the big picture with him is of some remarks Patrick made today about the fact that they actually had to try to get him out of games because he was dragging so much between injury and who knows, maybe age too.
Practice as well.
Yeah, and practice too. Yeah, good point. But I mean, obviously, the point Patrick's making is Travis's zeal to play. But on the other hand, I mean, what are we to take away from what this says about Travis's general health and ability to, continue after this year? Does it say anything, or is it just, he got hurt early and had to deal with it?
I think the Chiefs need some load management is what I think. Yeah. They need to go NBA style because, I mean, my God, if they knew that this Travis Kelsey was still available, they'd have sat him a lot earlier in one of those games. Just pick a game and say, hey, buddy, you're just sitting out this week. We're going to get you better for later on. But, I don't know exactly what that says. I mean, I think it speaks to Travis Kelsey, and this is what we see a lot in sports. I mean, Vahe, you're a part of it, is like, even if you're not 100%, you want to give what you have for your teammates, whether that's 70, whether that's 80, whether that's 85, whether it's 65. And I think over time we've learned that about Travis Kelsey. Like, he is a team-focused, goal-focused player when it comes to those sorts of things. So he probably was just doing his best to give what he could. It's just it wasn't necessarily helping the team like it's helping the team right now, and definitely was not the level that would have got them to the Super Bowl like it has.
You're making me think of this. I think intellectually we all understand that he is a team guy, but I think it's sometimes easy to get distracted from that because he's pretty flamboyant and, he's so upset after a game he won't typically talk to us, and it makes you kind of wonder about his mindset in relation to the team. But we hear over and over again how he's kind of the battery of this. And even Patrick, I think had in some ways, I don't know if he's deferential to Travis, but I think Patrick very much feels that Travis is a big part of the engine. I just don't know if I guess I'll speak for myself. I don't know if I fully appreciate how much he's part of that heart of this team, just because I think I get distracted by Patrick and some of Travis's theatrics.
I remember talking to Butch Jones last year and about his time in Cincinnati, and he said that he had a military group of military personnel come in and evaluate his team. And they told him after their evaluation, I think they're there for like 3 days, they said, well, number 18 is the leader on your team. And Butch Jones said, no way.
There has to be some sort of
spoof.
Exactly. I think
Right.
that was probably his exact reaction is, well, that can't be that guy. And he said, I can't remember the time frame that had passed where he was like, holy cow, they're right. And he used to say that Butch Jones also told me that the refs would come over to him before a game and say, hey, the other coach was saying, we got to watch 18. 18's too energetic at the line, and he plays to the echo of the whistle. And he said, I already knew we had an advantage on the other team because they were so concerned. He was already in their head before the game started.
Well, Kelsey certainly has been at his best in the postseason, and so has Mahomes. And I think this has probably been true without giving it a lot of thought over the last 4 or 5 seasons, that the best players are at their best this time of year. And another one of those players is L'Jarius Sneed. And Jesse, you said great offense beats great defense, and I agree with that. But L'Jarius Sneed made one of the top plays of the year for the Chiefs against the Ravens when he basically punched the ball out of Zay Jones' hands as he was going into the end zone. And Trent McDuffie fell on it in the end zone for a fumble recovery. So instead of it being a 17-14 game at the time, the Chiefs maintained a 10-point lead, and it stayed that way. No, it didn't. Baltimore got a field goal, made it 17-10. But anyway, I thought if the game had a biggest play, it was that one, and L'Jarius Sneed was I don't know, that's a play I think that defines him. And if you're going to show. If the NFL is going to do their top 100 countdown for next year and Sneed is in it, and he better be, that's the play they'll show.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, you also pointed out that the Chiefs didn't score off of any of their 3 turnovers,
right,
but they prevented 7. L'Jarius Sneed prevented 7 points, and that was a defensive game where the game in the second half in particular became more about prevention of scoring than it did scoring itself.
I think that play also sort of is highlighted because of the other plays that he makes. When that deep pass goes to Zay Flowers, there's no guarantee that L'Jarius Sneed is going to tackle him there.
Right.
And he does. And then Zay Flowers taunts, and then they give him back 15 yards. The Chiefs need every one of those yards. I mean, the Chiefs were beat on that play. And I liked Andy's line last week about maybe it was earlier this week about the turnovers, and you need 2 to tango.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You need a dance partner.
You need a dance partner with turnovers.
Yeah.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
And let's be clear here. Zay Flowers needed to fall down at the 1. And let Lamar Jackson or Gus Edwards, whoever, run the ball in, just like the week before. McCall Harbin needed to fall down at the 1 and let Isaiah Pacheco get the touchdown. But the Chiefs found a dance partner, and they took advantage of it, and that's because of the hustle of L'Jarius Sneed. But I'm so impressed by the Chiefs. They gave up some big plays last week, which was kind of uncharacteristic, but they always seem to make the tackle, and they always seem to make the other team snap it again. And there really is something to that. I mean, Drew Tranquill talked about it today. Go back on film, guys. The catch that Lamar Jackson makes on his own pass, there's nobody back. There's nobody in the final 60 yards of the field. The Chiefs blitzed everybody. And when Lamar Jackson catches it, Drew Tranquill's a step and a half behind one of the fastest players in the NFL, at least the fastest quarterback, you would think. And he catches him and gets him on an ankle tackle. And that just, to me, has been the Chiefs' defense this year. They continually make you snap it again. And at the end of it, they play with physicality too, and we saw it from L'Jarius Sneed, and he found a dance partner at a really, really important time.
So I just said that the best players have to be at their best in games like this, but that next level player for the Chiefs had some great moments, and I'm thinking of Deion Bush's interception in the end zone. Deion Bush played 3 snaps in the game and got a big interception in the end zone. And the Drew Tranquill play that you just mentioned, his importance to the game magnified by Willie Gay not playing against the Ravens. And then the final big play for the Chiefs, the 32-yard completion from Mahomes to Marquez Valdez-Scantling. If it hadn't worked, it would have the Chiefs would have punted, right? It was 3rd down when they completed that pass. If it hadn't worked, Ravens would have had the ball with a chance to tie or even go ahead. I thought, in fact, if the Ravens had scored, then they would have gone for 2 and try to win at the end after being outplayed all game. But just I don't know, courageous play, I think, to throw it. Maybe the deepest pass he attempted in the game.
I think this one he completed. He threw another one that was kind of a throwaway to Rashee Rice on a
early.
Yeah, that's right. You're right. Now I remember it. But and good for MVS to be the target on that play.
Absolutely, yeah.
Think about this. I mean, you could apply it to Drew Tranquill as well, I guess, but really more to the point about Deion Bush, 3 plays. Marquez, I think, had 2 targets. Maybe he had more, but I think it was 2 targets. 2
for 62 receiving.
And you're talking about those. You don't have to make 10 plays to be a force in the game, and you just have to be there for that moment.
Maybe foreshadowing here, guys. Deion Bush had 30 defensive snaps all year and got an interception. I feel for poor Trent McDuffie. The guy's on his second year in the league and still he's got to be looking at Deion Bush like, really, dude? Like, come on.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like 30 snaps and you get in there and you do this? I will say on that play, me and Brett Tavo, we do the details video every week. I was going over that play with him. He doesn't have any idea what Deion was doing on that play. Usually you kind of split your 2 safeties and they're kind of responsible, obviously for their half of the field. And for whatever reason, like Deion pays no attention to the outside of the field. Like he is pinched in from the snap. So that might be one of those stories here next week when we get all these guys out there and available. Sort of curious that like what Deion was thinking, why he just sort of ignored part of what should have been his responsibility on there. But again, he was in the perfect spot. And for whatever reason, Lamar Jackson decided to throw it up into triple coverage. But it was triple coverage because Deion Bush was shaded so far toward the middle of the field. And that's where the ball went, and that's where he got it. And I don't know, maybe he needs to send some tips to McDuffie. But hey, listen, NFL script writers, I'm just letting you know out there. Trent McDuffie interception. This is the game for it. This is the full circle moment. So
yeah. It is funny though about this. With as great as this defense has been, and really pretty great, doesn't get interceptions. I mean, it doesn't really get takeaways, but it was 8 interceptions in the the season.
Was it that? Is that what it was? I know there were minus 11 in turnover
overall. Yeah. So the idea of a guy getting 3 snaps, 30 on the season, and having one of them is pretty interesting. But the thing is, they are so often so Velcro to the guys they're covering that's the way they make the big time plays, right? I mean, that's sometimes with penalties, as Steve Spagnuolo pointed out earlier in the year, as the price of doing business, but they're preventing the big play. It'd be great to convert it the other way more, but I think you start with that and take that.
When we talk about motivation, I mean, this defense got beat up in last year's Super Bowl, and it's had a great season, but Trent McDuffie was beat badly on a touchdown by A.J. Brown. L'Jarius Sneed was beaten badly by Devontae Smith down the sideline. Like, these are some guys that have had literal all-pro years or all-pro caliber years in the case of L'Jarius, and they're going to get a second chance at a game that they played pretty poorly in a year ago.
Gave up 35 in a low possession game.
Yeah.
I mean, they did get the scoop and score from Nick Bolton, so you can't take that off the board for them. But you're absolutely right, and it's hard for us to sort of. This is going to be what it is with the Chiefs now. Like, okay, which Super Bowl was that? But I mean, it is going to be interesting to how this is remembered, because to remember that defense, I mean, that defense was dragged along by the offense last year, and that is no longer what this Chiefs team is about.
Well, and I think, even Nick Bolton, who had that play, I don't know if he spoke about it today because I had to go to something else, but he, in camp.
I asked him about it,
in camp, he was talking about that not redemptive exactly, but that the defense, that wasn't good enough what they did in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so he mentioned even today that he said it should have been a top 10 defense. And when somebody asked him, I think it was Todd Levo, when did you know about this defense? He said, well, I said in training camp that our floor was to be a top 10 defense. But the interesting thing that he said, actually, when I asked him about that play, he said those games are meant for unsung heroes. And we just talked about Deion Bush getting the interception. And that really is what these big games are. But to Jesse's point on the defense, like, in order to be remembered as the true season it had, which is what we think is the best defense in Andy Reid's coaching tenure, they've got to perform in this game.
I agree. Sure. I agree. Defense has to meet the moment.
Yeah, so, it does.
Great conversation, as always, guys. The second time around. inside joke. I don't think we've ever dedicated a podcast, but we're dedicating today's to Sister Annie. Sister Annie, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll have more for you and everybody else next week from Las Vegas. That will do it for today's episode. Thanks to producer Monty Davis and to our SportsBeat KC staff of Randy Mason, Jeff Rosen, and Scott Chasen. Tip of the cap to columnists Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian, along with beat writer Jesse Newell for sharing their insights. Super Bowl LVIII, we have got you covered. The print editions of the Kansas City Star, kansascity.com, and the nation's top digital sports page called Morning Sports Edition. You will not find better coverage. Follow the Chiefs' bid for a second straight Super Bowl victory with us. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week from Las Vegas with more episodes of SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.